So good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming today in person and bringing your lawn chairs. Also, thank you to those logging on in Zoom. And thank you to Chiemi Sensei and the leadership team, even Cheryl, for inviting me. This is a wonderful park setting. It's very hot though, so I'm glad the pavilion is here to protect us from the sun. So today, is it good? So today is our Obon Hatsubon service. Hatsubon marks the first Obon after a loved one's passing. So Obon is an annual observance, is an opportunity for us to reflect upon the innumerable causes and conditions that continue to influence our lives and the benefits we have received from the countless lives of others. So Sandra, in her introduction, stole most of my Dharma talk, so just to let you know. The word Obon is the abbreviated name for the ancient Ulambana Sutra, whose Japanese pronunciation is Urabon. And this story is about Moggallana, who was a disciple of the Buddha who had the ability of extraordinary vision. He saw his deceased mother suffering in the realm of hungry ghosts, and she was unable to get any nourishment because of this state, because anything she ate or drank turned to fire. The images of hungry ghosts are usually depicted with large bloated stomachs and tiny mouths, kind of like E.T. Greatly disturbed, he went to the Buddha and asked how he could release his mother from this suffering. And so the Buddha instructed him to make offerings to the many Buddhist monks who had just completed their summer retreat. So Moggallana did this and saw his mother's release. And he also realized the true nature of her past unselfishness and the many sacrifices that she had made for him. So Moggallana, happy because of his mother's release and grateful for his mother's kindness, danced with joy with all the other monks. Glad you're here. Glad you came. I see the Delvaux is good, and the Wesleys, and Mrs. Nishimura, of course. So in our Jodo Shinshu tradition, we don't dance for the benefit of others, as our birth as a Buddha is assured through the compassion of Amida Buddha. So we dance out of gratitude, giving and joy in the truth of life. For that reason, it's called a gathering of joy, or kangie. Kangi refers to the joy of becoming awakened to wisdom and compassion. For us Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, the story of Moggallana in the Ulambana Sutra reminds us that the memory of our ancestors is urging us to awaken to the truth of Amida Buddha. This awakening causes us to dance for joy in a spiritual and festive activity in gratitude, and is not necessarily a ritual for their benefit. So during this time of Obon, I would like to talk about our relationship with our ancestors. So I'd like to start by talking about one of the fundamental teachings that Shinran emphasizes in his major work, the Kyogo Shinshu. Shinran Shonin states the framework of Pure Land Buddhism in the very first chapter and opening passage. So please join me in Gasho as I read the passage. Reverently contemplating the true essence of the Pure Land Way, I see that Amida's directing of virtue to sentient beings has two aspects: the aspect of going forth to the Pure Land and the aspect for our return to this world. Namo Amida Butsu. So what Shinran Shonin is saying is that when our loved one dies, there are two aspects. I'll wait for the plane to go by. Now first, due to the power of the vow, due to Amida's directing of merit, they are reborn in the Pure Land and attain enlightenment and become a Buddha. This is the assurance that they are completely liberated from all suffering and able to give guidance to others experiencing suffering. With this assurance, we don't have to fear anxiety or grief of separation or disconnection. Amida Buddha of great compassion showed us that it is not an end, but a spiritual continuation with the second part in the aspect of our return. So I want to focus on the second part of this statement, which is the aspect of return to this world. And this is referred to in Japanese as Genso Eko. This completes the Bodhisattva path in which we come back to this world of suffering to guide other beings. It comes from the infinite compassion of Amida. And this is a very important part of our Jodo Shinshu traditions. It means guiding others to see the truth of reality and enlightenment. So how does this happen? How do we see the state of benefiting and guiding others? We become one in the compassionate working of Amida Buddha. Our loved one becomes Namo Amida Butsu and returns to this world of suffering as the principle of universal oneness. So this might sound confusing. I think another way to think about it is when someone close to you passes away, someone with whom you have close karmic relations and causes you to seek the Buddhist path, or someone moves you to encounter the Buddha Dharma, they are a bodhisattva. The fond memories you have of them is the world of Amida Buddha's infinite compassion, and speaking to tell us that there's a world that embraces you just as you are. The aspect of return to this world is not a literal coming back. They don't come back as a direct being or a ghost or apparition of some sort. They come back as the working of compassion or the working of the Buddha. You can think of it as a verb or activity. It can be expressed in so many different ways. They can be things in nature like a setting sun, a bright sunny day full of life, a fresh snowy day, like here in Minnesota, a rain-filled day nurturing the fields and the grass. It's the smell that reminds you of someone. It can be the tororo and takuan that reminds you of your mother's kindness to her cooking. That's a little more personal for me. They work as connections to our loved ones to awaken us to the truth of reality. It prompts us to reflect on the impermanence of life. What is the purpose of our life? To awaken to the meaning of life. They are triggers to reconnect you to the greater reality of life that is trying to awaken you to this realization. Our loved ones come back as truth. They come back to guide us to the Pure Land. Our loved ones are no longer with us, physically with us. They are gone from our lives. Our relationship with them no longer has the barriers of physical restrictions of time and space. In the freedom of this thought, we can understand that our relationship really begins anew. This is how we can understand this aspect of return. It doesn't have to be life-altering, profound events that hit you over the head. We just have to listen to our world, listen to Amida's call. Because of our blind passions, the filters that make it difficult for us to see clearly, this can be difficult for us to see and hear. When we have these feelings, it's great compassion telling us that we are okay, and true reality embraces us just as we are. The person who passes away is the messenger or the teacher. They are working on us. We have all probably read something written by a departed family member or friend and deeply reflected on its contents, or remembered something they said or an experience we had with them that left a strong memory. That person's karmic energies or that person's dharma will continue to have their powerful influence on our minds and hearts. This energy, this Namo Amida Butsu, is not passive but active and dynamic. For Hatsubon families, this Obon can be difficult, for it brings back memories and sorrow that is still fresh. But it is the spirit of Obon that reminds us that life goes on, and for us, the ones left behind, we live with a deeper appreciation for life and the benefits we receive from our loved ones. They are still a part of who we are. As we honor our ancestors, we also honor our own lives and remind ourselves to make the most of our time. It is our loved ones who are helping us gather and support each other and to help each other move forward. By bringing us together, they are reminding us to be mindful that every opportunity to be with those we love is one to cherish. So I want to share a Jodo Shinshu poem with all of you. People will leave, but their smile does not leave. People will leave, but their words do not leave. People will leave, but their warmth does not leave. People will leave, but they return to the hands placed together. For us who don't have eyes to fully grasp the whole universal truth, sadness often overwhelms us because from our eyes, our loved ones seem like they are gone forever. However, Shinran Shonin taught us that we will always be together with them as Buddha is continuing to guide us. Like this poem, people leave from this world, yet through placing our hands together in Gasho, we can realize the deep and warm connection to our departed loved ones, and behind the connection, we will see the unconditional compassion which always embraces us together. There's a misconception that is often stated that Buddhism is a passive religion, and that is about being calm, trying to realize a state of bliss, being more internally focused on attainment. I think this aspect of return that we were talking about in Jodo Shinshu is just one reason you can look at to see that this is not totally true. Buddhism is not passive, it is active, but Buddhism is not neutral either. You know, historically, the Buddha took a stand against the caste system in India. He rejected the riches of a life of asceticism to attain enlightenment. When he attained enlightenment, he consciously made a decision to not retreat from the world, but to return to the world and to begin to teach others as he did for 45 years. He taught that others could attain enlightenment, and their caste designation was not punishment for past deeds, nor a barrier to enlightenment. He pointed out this opportunity for more people. You know, Shinran Shonin, the founder of our tradition, was also a radical innovator. You know, he brought the teachings down from the mountaintop to make them accessible to the common person like us. For him, one did not have to give up their everyday lives to become an ascetic. Buddhahood was available to the regular, ordinary person, those traditionally overlooked by the Buddhist establishment of that period. His teachings were considered so radical by the Buddhist establishment that he was disrobed and exiled. He was politically persecuted because he was trying to liberate people from the oppressive social order through religious means. The cultural impact of his teaching made this the most popular form of Buddhism in Japan. So historically, Buddhism was really a religion of activism. The aspect of return I've been talking about is an example of this. So many of you may not know, maybe the long-timers do, but where the Twin Cities Sangha used to meet was at the Midtown YWCA. This YWCA was in the middle of the rioting and activism associated with the death of George Floyd. The police precinct that was burned down was about a block from where we used to meet. And May was the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's death. You know, I saw a photo that expressed the desire for George Floyd to rest in peace. Rest in peace, or RIP, is a phrase often used to memorialize someone who has passed away, to express the wish for the person to rest in eternal peace in the afterlife. But this tragedy became a tipping point in history. With so much activity and change worldwide, this desire for George Floyd to rest in peace may not be an accurate wish. When I visited the memorial site, when Connie and I visited the memorial site to George Floyd shortly after the rioting, I saw many different images of RIP, but most of them said, rest in power. That seemed to be a much more appropriate phrase to memorialize someone like George Floyd. You know, from a Buddhist context, this certainly relates to Shinran's aspect of return to this world as Buddha activity. You know, I looked up the origins of rest in power, this phrase, and it started in response to the deaths of influential people, especially those whose death were the result of systemic oppression. Spiritually, it can express the wish for the person to finally rest free from oppression. It expresses that their deaths have the power to make a meaningful difference. Although we should be sensitive to its history in communities of color and the expression of unjust deaths for the Black and LGBTQ plus communities, it's also used for people who are very influential and meaningful in their lives in many ways. There's a book written by Trayvon Martin's parents called Rest in Power. You might remember Trayvon Martin as the 17-year-old killed in 2012 by George Zimmerman, who was eventually acquitted of murder. And his death was a catalyst in the Black Lives Matter movement. In the Jodo Shinshu context, I think we can think of rest in power as Amida Buddha's activity in the aspect of return. We can have different understandings of what Amida Buddha means to us. Sometimes seeing his statue makes Amida seem like a being we should worship. But I think it can be helpful to think of Amida Buddha like a verb in this context. It is Buddha activity, the working of wisdom and compassion in the ultimate reality that historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, awakened to in his enlightenment. It is the dynamic working of Amida moving toward us. In the Shin tradition, each person will assuredly become a Buddha. And what that means is they are fully awake. They see and fully understand the truth. And Buddhists have a responsibility to teach and guide us, to show us what is important in our lives. Our ancestors who we are honoring today continue to be with us in our hearts and minds and continue to guide us. During this time of reflection during Obon, we express our gratitude to our ancestors for this continual spiritual relationship and guidance that they provide for us. They are resting in power. So I'd like to close by reading a passage by Shinran Shonin from the Hymns of the Pure Land Masters. So please join me in Gasho. The directing of virtue for our return to this world is such that we attain the resultant states of benefiting and guiding others, immediately re-entering the world of being. we engage in this compassionate activity that is the virtue of Samantabhadra, the Bodhisattva manifesting the Buddha's compassion in its complete fullness. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.